You are listening to the Air Raid Hour with host Judge Mathis, dog, Tilt Money, dog, presented by the fine folks over at the Cover One Sports Network, dogs. Bills Mafia, let's go!
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Air Raid Hour. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at Judge Mathis, joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. Together, we are the Bills guys, and this pregame show is brought to you by Picasso's Pizza and the Cover One Sports Network. This week, the 11-3 Bills take on the 3-11 Chicago Bears in a chilly weather game at Soldier Field. The Bills clinch the AFC East for a third consecutive season with a win today. They continue to control their own destiny for the number one seed with a win today. But before we get into that, Merry Christmas Eve to all of you out there, especially the people in Buffalo right now. Our thoughts are with you. Some of you are likely not watching this pregame show because you're either without power or attending to much more important matters than the Buffalo Bills pregame show. But that's all right. And at the end of the day, it's just a game. Our thoughts are with you. Dave, any thoughts for the people in Buffalo who are just getting battered the worst they have since 1977 out there?
Yeah, I mean, just, coming up with the loss of power. I think if people have power, that's great. I know it's been in and out in varying different places around the area. So, would just say, like, look, bundle up and be with your family if you're with them, and try to make the best of it. And there's not much else, unfortunately, to say other than, like, one way or another, we'll get through it. Bills fans are tough. Bills people in Buffalo are tough. And look, my hat's off to all of the people out there helping, for those who are helping others in need, for those who do have power, helping others, getting them over to their houses and things like that. So, wishing you nothing but the best.
And Jay, we appreciate this. He said he drove 20 minutes just to get internet so he could watch this show. So I always appreciate you, Jay. And Alan says he still got internet. So hopefully you still got internet. If not, maybe like you can like finagle. Maybe you got like some battery packs for your phones. Can find a way to watch the game on your phone. I feel really bad for Bills fans who have to miss this football game today because they're without power and don't have access to a television to watch it. But maybe pull out the old battery powered radio and listen to Eric Wood and John Murphy call the game today. Whatever you got to do, find a way, right, to get this game in today. Looking at the weather in Soldier Field is not a pretty picture either. Real feel of around negative 13 at kickoff. Wind speeds 20 to 30 miles per hour expected. For reference, that's about 5 degrees colder, real feel, and about 10 to 15 miles per hour stronger winds than what we saw last year in the Bills-Patriots wild card playoff game. Normally, we would be approaching this football game against the Bears today like we did like the Texans game last year or the Falcons game last year. It's a great team in the Buffalo Bills versus a bad team in the Chicago Bears. Normally, me and you would be sitting here citing statistics like DVOA and advanced analytics from PFF or some game trends from SIS. But today, despite all the advantages that the Buffalo Bills have on paper, it feels like all of that goes out the window in this type of weather, especially when the Bears have a playmaking quarterback like Justin Fields. Is that an overreaction on my part?
No, because I had in my show notes that there's a possibility do we see the Bears do the Patriots game plan and run it or pass the ball only like 3 times all day today. Like, I mean, it's a legitimate possibility. I mean, is it a high likelihood? No, but like they do get Khalil Herbert back today. They have David Montgomery. They're the number 1 rushing team in the NFL. And as far as advanced statistics, they're not very good in a lot of things, but they are a good rushing team. Yeah. And they do have Justin Fields, who's the leading rushing quarterback in the NFL. So in these types of conditions, it squeezes the game a bit, right? And we thought that might be the case against the Dolphins, and obviously wasn't really a factor until the very end. But this is going to be a a grinded out type of game, I think, for the Bills today. And they're going to have to be able to tackle, and they're going to have to be able to stop that Bears running game because it's going to get squeezed down today a bit.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about this a little bit later in the show when we start talking about the Bears offense versus the Bills defense. But in weather conditions like this, a Bills defense that's tackling the way it's been tackling the last month, there could be a recipe for some disaster today if the Buffalo Bills don't get back to the fundamentals and wrap up tackling and everybody does their 111th. But looking at the inactive list here, it's not pretty for either team, but the Bears have way less depth than the Bills do, and they might actually be more hurt than the Buffalo Bills are. I mean, the Bears inactive list, the guys they have on IR, the roster they're fielding today is crazy. But if you look at the Bills inactives, Boogie Basham and Mitch Morse are out. Kingsley Jonathan has been called up from the practice squad, so a little revenge game from Kingsley Jonathan, who was claimed off waivers in late August, early September, the final cut down day. Was with the Bears for a little bit, cut, now returned to the Buffalo Bills practice squad, now gets to go up against the Bears. You likely see Ryan Bates sliding into center for Mitch Morse, Greg Van Rotten to right guard. Maybe Ike Butker gets some play at right guard. Who knows? We'll see as the game goes along, but he is active. Justin Murray is inactive. Jordan Phillips, Ed Oliver, each playing through relatively significant injuries. So that'll be interesting to see how they handle that up front with a rather depleted defensive line with guys like Von Miller out and these guys playing with some injuries and Basham out as well. But other inactives for the Bills, Xavier Rhodes, Dean Marlowe, Balon Spector, the aforementioned Justin Murray, and Tommy Sweeney. So the Bills don't even, use that extra tight end, even in these conditions. We saw that last year. They didn't do it as well. What are your thoughts on the Buffalo Bills inactive list? I'm missing some key guys, again, on top of all the guys who are already on IR.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we figured, Boogie Basham didn't practice all week. He was declared out fairly early. Mitch Morse, obviously with a concussion, that's big. The rest of it is interesting as far as not necessarily the inactives, but the actives with Jordan Phillips. Wasn't sure if he was going to suit up today, has had that shoulder injury. Obviously, the Bills are thinking they need to put as much beef today on that defensive line as they possibly can, given the situation, obviously, with the Bears running attack. But it's not pretty for the Bills missing Mitch Morse and Boogie Basham. Tommy Sweeney is a mild surprise, but given how the Bills trended at the end of last season with Tommy Sweeney being inactive, I'm not bent out of shape about it, right? Like I'm not going to lose sleep over Tommy Sweeney being inactive today. But Mitch Morse obviously is the key one. We knew he was going to be out. How are the Bills going to handle? How are the Bills going to be able to handle things up front? And we'll get into this as we talk about the Bears defense against the Bills offense. But Jordan Phillips, to me, and Ed Oliver playing through some injury is going to be interesting to me to see how effective they actually are against a team that is really good at running the ball.
Yeah, looking at the Bears inactive list, Jay Davis came in and says it figures that Chicago's missing all their wide receivers and cornerbacks in a game where you might not be throwing much. The Bears inactives, I mean, this week alone, they put promising rookie Jack Sanborn on IR, promising second-year corner Jalen Johnson on IR, as well as Kendall Vildor. They recalled Khalil Herbert from IR just in time for this game. They're probably going to be using him a ton. Their practice squad call-ups included tight end Chase Allen and wide receiver Nisma Webster. They signed Breon Borders, Elijah Lee, and Harrison Hand this week. All three of them could get significant playing time looking at the Bears depth chart. Chase Claypool, Equinemius St. Brown are out on top of Darnell Mooney already being on IR. Trayvon Wesco, their blocking tight end, out. Tevin Jenkins and Cody Whitehair, their two starting guards, out to go along with Tim Boyle and Angelo Blackson. It's really unfortunate. This weather is unfortunate because this game should be a walk in the park for the Buffalo Bills looking at the Chicago Bears depth chart. But for all these injuries and as bad as the Bears roster is, someone says like, oh, great question. How did the Chicago Bears win this game? Justin Fields, Khalil Herbert, David Montgomery. We're going to get into some advanced statistics later about how good of a play caller I think Luke Getsy is and how creative of a play caller I think Luke Getsy is, making things easy for Justin Fields. They win this game by running the ball down our throats, controlling the clock, and scoring a ton of points just by running the football. That's the only path to victory for the Chicago Bears today. I
mean, it is the only path, and the fact is that if they limit the Bills' possessions, that's part of that recipe, right? Like running the ball, keeping Josh Allen off the field. Bears have been great at running the ball this year. They're at home. They really don't have any pressure on them. Like there's zero pressure on the Bears in this game to win. So the Bills are looking to win this game to get the AFC East and to kind of take, make sure they keep pace for the number 1 seed. So all the pressure really is on the Bills in this game. And so if the Bears come out and they do run the ball well, and we saw the Bills struggle to defend the run against Miami last week, they have a chance. They do have a chance. And I will never say they don't, because we've seen teams like the Texans take the Chiefs to the brink and the Cowboys and such. And obviously they didn't pull it out, but like the NFL's weird. You just never know what you're going to get. So the Bears do have a recipe. It is one dimensional, but there is a recipe.
All right, we're about to get into Bills offense versus the Bears defense. We're going to start with that. But before that, this show is brought to you by Picasso's Pizza. 4 great locations in Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Buffalo Pizza since 1980. You can order online at picassospizza.net. And if you're an out-of-towner like us, you can even get it mailed to your home. And I can tell you from experience, it's just as good as getting it fresh from the restaurant. Again, that is picassospizza.net. All right. Looking at this Chicago Bears depth chart on defense, it's not pretty. Along the defensive line, they got Travis Gibson, Justin Jones, Armand Watts, Muhammad El-Quadin. Some of the guys that rotate in, Dominique Robinson, Taco Charlton, Mike Pennell. It's not exactly a murderer's row of defensive linemen. Linebacker, they've lost Sanborn. They traded Roquan Smith. They're down to, we don't even know who's going to play at linebacker today. Maybe it's Nicholas Morrow and Joe Thomas. Maybe Matt Adams or Stephen Weatherford or Elijah Lee gets some run. We have no idea. It's going to be a surprise to us when the game kicks off. And that cornerback, again, it's going to be a surprise. They have the 2 high draft picks, Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker back there. Safety set with Brisker and Houston Carson. It's going to be interesting to see where Kyler Gordon plays with all these injuries. He's traditionally their nickel corner, but that would leave them on the boundaries with Jaylon Jones, Breon Borders, or Harrison Hand, and one of them joined the team this week, and the other was recalled off the practice squad. So if you see Kyler Gordon on the boundary, that would mean a guy like Josh Blackwell plays the nickel. So this Chicago Bears defense is an absolute mess. On top of that, they're 31st overall in DVOA. They run nickel 61% of the time, which is 5th most in the NFL. Base 4-3, 29%, which is 2nd most in the NFL. They rush 4 men 77% of the time, which is 5th most in the NFL. I don't think you're going to see anything too crazy from this Matt Eberflus defense. The Buffalo Bills just have to go out there and they have to execute. They have to execute in this football game. What are your expectations for in these conditions for this Buffalo Bills offense?
I mean, I look, Bears are dead last in the NFL in 3rd down conversion rate allowed. They're allowing just under 50% 3rd downs being converted. We know how good the Bills offense is. They're one of the best, if not the best, 3rd down conversion rate. I think they're 2nd best 3rd down conversion rate team in the NFL on offense. So like, if you look at that and you say, okay, well, if the weather conditions are going to kind of condense this game down a bit, the Bears still aren't very good at getting teams off the field on 3rd down. So I would like to see the Bills, I could see Devin Singletary having a big role in this game, and kind of Josh Allen running the ball, having a big role in this game, and kind of keeping those chains moving. If you're the Bills, this is a game, if you're the Bills, that you don't have to probably put up 28 points to win, right? Convert some 3rd downs, score a couple touchdowns, and you're probably going to be okay. So for me, I like the Bills to kind of come out, depending on the wins, go with a little bit more of that traditional running game, quick passing game. Bears are 30th DVOA against number 1 wide receivers. Stefon Diggs is kind of like, I wouldn't say taking a back seat in recent weeks, but like he's due for a game where maybe there's not expectation for him to have a huge game because of the conditions. Bears are not good at defending number 1 wide receivers. So, but the quick passing game and yards after catch is going to be big for the Bills in this game, as well as I do think getting that running game going with Singletary and Josh being a big part of that.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at these weather conditions, the number one thing I think about is Josh Allen using his legs, especially a team that, no offense, like their defensive line isn't very good outside of like Jay mentioned like Travis Gibson's having a solid year. Yeah. A guy like Mike Pennell is a good run stuffer in the middle. Yeah. But like their linebackers are Nicholas Morrow and Joe Thomas. Like we don't even know who's playing linebacker for them today. It looks like it's going to be those two guys. Their secondary is beat up. Josh Allen running the football is going to be huge. And another guy I look at that needs to have a big game and needs to be fed the football. I'm talking like 10 targets in this game. Dawson Knox. Dawson Knox has to have a big game today. And I was watching that Jags-Jets game and having a good laugh on Thursday night. And I'm watching the way that the Jaguars, and they're different talents. Evan Ingram is more, I think, of a receiving threat than Dawson Knox. I understand all of that. But the way that the Jaguars were utilizing and getting the ball into the hands of Evan Ingram, the Buffalo Bills, Ken Dorsey has to take a note out of the Jaguars playbook this week. And he needs to scheme up ways just to get the ball into Dawson Knox's hands, because I think a guy like Dawson Knox, especially with the way he runs after the catch, the way he's willing to lower shoulder, lower the boom in this kind of weather when it's very difficult to tackle and guys are unwilling to tackle, especially with these linebackers he'll be matched up with against today. I think Dawson Knox needs to be a huge, huge, huge integral part of this game plan for the Buffalo Bills. What are your thoughts on Dawson Knox, and who else do you think the Buffalo Bills need to get involved? Maybe some secondary players they need to get involved.
I mean, it makes total sense, right? And he has some momentum coming after the last two games, leading the team and receiving the last 2 weeks and getting in the end zone. So it makes total sense to continue that trend. Ken Dorsey's done a much better job at kind of scripting plays for Dawson Knox, and I would love to see that trend continue. It'll be interesting to see if James Cook gets used out of the backfield as well a bit more in the short passing game, because passing around the line of scrimmage is going to be important in this game. So as far as secondary players, I mean, James Cook's been a bit hard to predict, but I think this could be a nice week for him too, as far as catching balls out of the backfield.
Yeah, that will be interesting for sure to see how they utilize running backs, because like in these conditions, right? You think like, oh, the bruising back. You think, and the Bills don't have that at all. So then your mind goes to Devin Singletary, but James Cook has shown some like legitimate power and legitimate ability to like lower his shoulder this year, and he's done some solid things. So that'll be interesting to see how James Cook is utilized. And then seeing if they can get the ball into the hands of Nyheim Hines. That'll be really interesting to see as well. In these conditions, do the Buffalo Bills try to supplement their running game with some of this jet sweep? And if they do it with jet sweep, is it Isaiah McKenzie? Is it Nyheim Hines? That's where it gets super interesting for the Buffalo Bills today, is how they get some of these other guys involved. And I've lost my co-host here for a bit, so I apologize for that. He'll be right back as soon as he can. So you got me, and we got the comment section, and we're gonna have a good time here talking about the Buffalo Bills offense versus this Chicago Bears defense. The next thing I wanted to talk about, I'm going to go solo, I'm going to go Colin Cowherd style here, is some of the ways in which some of the players in which the Bears have on their depth chart on defense that would scare me as a Bills fan, or should scare or concern Ken Dorsey as he's scheming up this offensive game plan for the Buffalo Bills. And it's not exactly a murderer's row of talent for the Chicago Bears team. The number one guy I think that concerns me, and would concern me if I'm Ken Dorsey, is second-round pick Jaquan Brisker. He is a really talented safety prospect. He is a guy who's going to continue to get better and better. He understands how to lay the boom and lay the lick on people. I'm concerned. One of the things you got to be concerned about in these weathers is the shots that he's going to get on Josh Allen. And I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Jaquan Brisker is utilized today to spy on a quarterback like Josh Allen. So that'll be really interesting. And that's a player to watch in this game, Jaquan Brisker. Kyler Gordon has struggled this year. I was a big Kyler Gordon fan coming out in the draft process, so I'm going to defend him a little bit. I'm going to say it's probably pretty hard to be a good player in the secondary when, you know, your pass rush isn't good and your linebackers aren't good and some of the talent around you in the secondary isn't good. Like, this Bears team just isn't good. So I think as the Bears develop more talent, Kyler Gordon will get better. And it's not like the Buffalo Bills are going to be attacking people through the air today. But Kyler Gordon, again, it'll be interesting. Do they match him up on Stefon Diggs because they're so light at corner? Do they focus him on Cole Beasley because they think the Bills might try to work the slot? Do they focus Kyler Gordon on Dawson Knox and try to take Dawson Knox away? So how do the Bears try to weaponize Kyler Gordon? That'll be really interesting, in my opinion, because he's really the only cornerback with a pulse. It's like Breon Borders. It's Harrison Hand. It's a bunch of like street free agents and practice squad guys at cornerback outside of Kyler Gordon. So how they choose to weaponize him today and how they choose to utilize him today will be something to keep an eye on and to monitor. And then last but not least, he's not a flashy name, but in weather conditions like this, I think a guy like Mike Pennell is another guy to keep an eye on. He's a big dude at 330 pounds. He's a veteran. He's been around the block. He's played in conditions like this. He's played in weather like this. He's sort of a scrappy, old school defensive tackle. So between Mike Pennell, Jaquan Brisker, and Kyler Gordon, there are some dudes on this Bears defense you have to worry about. But I think for the most part, it's really a defense really devoid of talent. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. And I got my co-host back. This is going to be his Michael Jordan flu game for you today, huh?
It's not. Yeah, I've been very sick this morning. I'm trying to power through it, but I did like what you said there at the end. I was like thinking about this Bears defense and in my show notes, looking about how they don't get to the quarterback. They only have 17 sacks as a team. Jaquan Brisker leading the team with only 3 sacks, and obviously Roquan right there. So this is a team that struggles to get to the quarterback. So, I mean, if the Bills do want to try to throw the ball a little bit in this game, if they feel like they can, then, we just have to worry really about what that means for guys that have been struggling on that Bills offensive line, like Spencer Brown and obviously Mitch Morse not being in. And Jay says the best cure for stomach bug is a Bills win. Yeah, and I could use a Bills win. I could use a fantasy win. I could use a lot of things today. So we'll see how it goes.
Let's take a look now at this Chicago Bears offense. Justin Fields at quarterback, David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert. The offense is going to be funneled through those 3 guys. They're without Chase Claypool. They're without Darnell Mooney. They're without Equanimeous St. Brown. Their wide receivers are down to Dante Pettis, N'Keal Harry, Byron Pringle, and Velus Jones Jr., who could maybe have a role today. They use him a lot underneath. They use him a lot in the jet sweep game. They try to get the ball in his hands and let him make plays. And they have a fairly talented young tight end in Cole Kmet as well.
Yeah,
it's their offensive line that is a concern, and whether this offensive line can hold up. They're obviously without Cody Whitehair. They are without Tevin Jenkins, who is really starting to click at guard. From left to right, it's likely going to be Braxton Jones, Jatir Carter, Sam Mustipher, Michael Schofield, and Larry Borum. They also do have Alex Leatherwood on the bench. He's listed as a tackle on their depth chart. Maybe they play him at guard. It's where he played a little bit in Las Vegas before he flailed out there and was cut. And Riley Rife, the veteran tackle. Maybe they try to kick him inside if they get desperate, but I doubt it. So that's sort of the depth that the Bears have along their offensive line. They are 22nd in DVOA, 27th versus the pass, and 9th in rushing. But I look at some of these SIS tendencies, and I really like Luke Getsy. I think he's a future head coach in the National Football League. He came from that Matt LaFleur tree. He was probably more qualified to be a head coach as the quarterback coach of the Packers than Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive coordinator, was, who's failing out in Denver. But he's done a really good job. And I look at some of these tendencies. They run a ton of 11 and 12, typical. They run some decent amount of 21 personnel with their fullback, Kenny Blasome. 8th in the league in motion usage, 6th in the league in play action, 8th in the league in RPO, 1st in designed rollouts. That's something the Buffalo Bills have to keep an eye on. 5th in the use of the screen passing game. And they run into a stacked box. They run into a stacked box. 8th most in the NFL. Luke Getsy uses a lot of window dressing, and he caters this offense to Justin Fields. It'll be tough without their 2 starting guards, but this is a team capable of running all over us if we don't properly fill gaps, do our 111th, and most importantly, tackle. What are your thoughts on Luke Getsy, this offense, and what they can do to really, honestly, in these conditions, take it to the Buffalo Bills if that defense doesn't show up today.
It's pretty incredible, to be honest. When you mentioned that stat about the Bears running into heavy boxes 8th most and still leading the league in rushing, like, this is a good running team. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, the Bills are going to have to be much better tackling today. They're going to be much more disciplined in their gaps. Defending the rollout has not necessarily been something the Bills have been great at. They haven't been bad. But Luke Getsy, I mean, you talk about doing the most you can with the cupboard being bare. I mean, he's the guy that's getting the most out of this offense. I mean, granted, the Eagles are one of the best teams in the league, but the Bears fought last week. I mean, they didn't give up. They came back. I mean, they used Cole Kmet. They used Velus Jones. So, you know, you mentioned Velus Jones maybe having a role today. Like, he's using what he's got, and what he's got is not a ton. So he's truly leveraging the best players on his team and catering the offense to where he can use his best players in a situation where that team is really pretty devoid of offensive talent. So I don't like that they're getting Khalil Herbert back today in a game where we expect to read a ton of running from the Bears. They have another guy that they can add to the mix with Fields and Montgomery. So I give them a lot of credit. I know they're only 3-11, but look, you go back to week 1, and I know it seems like so long ago. This is a team that beat the 49ers in bad conditions in week 1 in the rain. And so it's an equalizer, and a team that runs the ball as well as they do. I give them a lot of credit, and the Bills are going to have to be ready to tackle today. They just have to.
Yeah. I mean, the difference between Ken Dorsey and Luke Getsy as play callers is like night and day. Whereas Ken Dorsey very much is, all right, Josh Allen, we're going to drop back. Everyone's going to run their routes. You know, they're going to get downfield. You're going to make the play. Whereas Luke Getsy is like, all right, we're gonna motion this guy here, we're gonna motion this guy there, we're gonna scheme this specific person open. Like, the ball's gonna go here. Like, that's the type of offense that they're running under Justin Fields right now, and it's been rather effective. Now, obviously, hopefully, over time, some of those training wheels come off because it's not really 100% sustainable what they are doing. But it'll be really interesting to see how the Buffalo Bills try to defend it. Dan Van Kay comes in and he says, AJ Klein. Could the Buffalo Bills do some more 43 looks today? If the Bears go heavy in 12 personnel, if they go heavy in 21 personnel, the Buffalo Bills might have a decision to make. And that decision is, do we take Teron Johnson off the field?
Right.
When the Bears are passing, what do you do with Justin Fields? Do you take the Patrick Mahomes approach and use Matt Milano as a spy? That was quite effective. Matt Milano might be really important in this football game. Do you do a lot of run blitzing like we did against Lamar Jackson, but we've struggled with since then? The Bills have gotten sort of chewed up a little bit when they've tried to run blitz. Who knows? It'll be interesting to see if that's an approach. That's something that Leslie Frazier has done a ton this year. But at the end of the day, I look at this defense. Tremaine Edmonds in the middle of the field. It's going to have to be on point today.
Oh, yeah.
Gregory Rousseau, Shaq Lawson setting the edge are going to have to be on point today. Daquan Jones is going to have to be on point today. Tim Settle's going to have to be on point today because I just don't know how healthy Ed Oliver and Jordan Phillips are. Certainly happy to have Jordan Poyer playing in this game despite that knee injury, because I feared if a guy like D. Marlowe or Cam Lewis or someone like that had to come up and run fit and play the line of scrimmage. And the last position I look at is Dane Jackson has not been the same in terms of tackling since his neck injury. And I really would prefer, I know I've been beating this drum both on this show and on social media, and some people are sick of hearing it. I really do hope that Kyer Elam outsnaps Dane Jackson today, because I fear Dane Jackson mano-a-mano with pretty much any one of these three in the trio of Justin Fields, Khalil Herbert, and David Montgomery. I don't think Dane Jackson's taking those guys to the ground.
Yeah, probably not. And David Montgomery's hard to tackle as it is. I mean, he's not the flashiest runner, but he does carry guys with him. And obviously Justin Fields has the moves. So yeah, we need some sure tackling today. I'm with you. I don't know how much I'm trusting Dane Jackson right now tackling, but to be fair, like not the whole team, I shouldn't say that. There were some struggling last week with more than just Dane Jackson, and really in recent weeks. So with that being said, regardless of that, I do want to still see Kaiir Elam get more run. And I do think this game, where you expect it to be played a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage, should set up well for a guy like Kaiir Elam. And I would imagine also for Trey White, given that he's been able to kind of make some of his best sort of pass breakups recently since he's been back at and near the line of scrimmage. So give me Kaiir Elam today. It will be interesting to see, because I believe last week Jackson still outsnapped him, and it's really been that way for the last couple weeks. So hard to predict, but if there was ever a time to give the rookie some chance to play more snaps, today should be the day.
Yeah. Looking now at the Bills special teams, Bills are second overall in special teams DVOA. The Bears are 21st overall. They have Cairo Santos kicking. They have Trent Gill punting. And who knows who we'll see returning kicks and punts, because some of these guys have been injured and out of the lineup. But they got Treston Ebner, who's a pretty solid college career as a return man. They got Khalil Herbert, who had a pretty solid college career as a return man. I believe he took a kickback for a touchdown last year too. Dante Pettis. And they obviously have Velus Jones Jr. as well. So there's a number of people. They've been sort of mixing and matching all year, depending on their injuries, who they have back there returning kicks and punts. So it'll be a game time decision for the Bears who they roll out there. But I would expect to see Ebner on kick returns, and I would probably expect to see Velus Jones on punt returns. But it'll be interesting to see what they decide to roll with. But looking at special teams, number one, you need solid returns, fielding returns from Nyheim Hines today. You need solid tackling, wrap-up tackling when they do punt the ball today from guys like Tyler Matakevich, Saran Neal, Taiwan Jones. And you need solid punting from Sam Martin in a game like this when the Buffalo Bills have to, unfortunately, punt the football. The interesting thing is going to be field goals. The field goals might not factor much into this game because of the weather. And it'll be really interesting to see specifically, do the Bills try to even, do the teams, either teams really even, do they try to kick extra points? Like, I'm sure they have better knowledge of how the kickers are doing in these conditions than we do, because they're out on the field right now, warming up, etc. You know, you might see a tweet from one of the beat reporters. Hopefully, if they're doing their job, they're looking at what the kickers and the punters are doing right now in these conditions, and tweeting about it. It'll be really interesting to see how the kickers handle this wind and this cold, because the football is going to be hard as a rock, and the wind is gusting at about 20, 25 miles an hour. So what are your thoughts on special teams, specifically like how to manage like kicking field goals? I'd expect the Bills to be hyper aggressive today on fourth down inside the 50.
I would too. And I thought this would be the case. Maybe there'd be a chance for this last week against the Dolphins, but the snow didn't really end up being a factor till the very end. Was what you just mentioned, was going for two on when scoring. Like, I feel like, man, 8 points is going to be like gold in this game. So touchdowns already are going to be hugely valuable. If you can tack on an extra point, and not meaning to have a pun there, but like tacking on the two instead of just having the extra point, especially given that, 33-yarder in these conditions may not be a guarantee. Now, I do think that maybe inside the 20, inside the 10, in situations like that, I do think you will potentially see, attempts at kicks in those situations, especially if it's like kind of near the end of the half, whatever, and in situational football will dictate when that is required. But the Bills are going to be aggressive, I think, on fourth down. Either way, the Bears have nothing really to lose, and we know how good of a running team they are, so they're going to be aggressive on fourth down as well. Cairo Santos, kind of a journeyman, but has had a couple of nice years in a row for the Bears, kind of really rebounded his career. But today, I don't want this game coming down to the kicking game. And as good as Tyler Bass has been, I don't want
best kicker in the league this year. I didn't realize that until this week when people were posting his statistics, comparing him to some of the Pro Bowlers and stuff. He's the best kicker in the league right now.
Best kicker in the league. And so while I have total faith in him, I just don't want this game to come down to a kick. I mean, sure, last week's situation, that's a little bit different. And again, of course, I'll take it if that's the case, but let's hope it doesn't come down to that.
Yeah, and Bruce Ma coming in with a comment, he says, expect a lot of punts and a lot of muffed punt returns. And that's the thing, in a game like this where, look at the Bills depth chart, look at the Bears depth chart, look at all the Bills advanced statistics, look at all the Bears advanced statistics. There's no way that this should be a close game. in weather conditions like this, with the weapon that the Chicago Bears have in Justin Fields running the football, in a game where muff punts, like things like that happen, and they could be the difference. So you got to play smart, fundamental football. You got to protect the football in games like this, or, upsets of immense proportions like the Bears over the Bills could happen today. And a lot of that has to do not with how good the teams are, but just the weather conditions and how the players sort of adapt to them. All right. So up next is our pregame superlatives. And as always, we're going to start with our Take Me Higher player of the game, a star player other than Josh Allen, who has to step up for the Buffalo Bills to win the football game. Feel free to give us your Take Me Higher player of the game in the comment section.
Can you take me higher to a place where blind men see?
All right, Dave, who is your Take Me Higher player of the game?
Man, third time's the charm. Three good games in a row. Dawson Knox is my Take Me Higher player of the game. I mean, look, I hate to go back to the well again for the third game in a row, but hey, it's working. It's working right now. So, and like you mentioned, game's going to be played close to the line of scrimmage. Dawson Knox getting more scripted plays to him in the last few weeks. He's really made an impact after the catch. Well, I think yards after catch is going to be huge today in a game where it might be hard to get big chunk plays. Some of these big chunk plays may be because of yards after catch and not necessarily throwing the ball deep as far as air yards are concerned. So give me Dawson Knox today against the Bears as my Take Me Higher player of the game and make it 3 in a row.
All right. We got Jessica Tennis coming in saying Ryan Bates with Mitch Morse out. He's going to be working the pivot. That's going to be really important to watch. Jay Davis says Matt Milano needs to step up and limit any threat of Justin Fields scrambling. And Roy Collins comes in and says Tremaine Edmonds needs to step up today. And mine is a combination of sort of Jay Davis and Roy Collins. If I have to pick one, I'm going to go with Matt Milano. So I'm going to go with Matt Milano as my Take Me Higher player of the game. I think that they're going to utilize him as a spy on Justin Fields the way they utilized him as a spy on Patrick Mahomes to success. I want to throw Tremaine Edmonds in there as well, just because of the fact that I think he's going to be a huge vital part over the middle of the field, stuffing guys like David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert between the tackles. But those big plays typically come from outside of the tackles, and a guy like Matt Milano, sideline to sideline on Justin Fields, could be really important. And I wanted to go defensive line for my Take Me Higher player, and I wanted to go to the well for a third straight week with Gregory Rousseau. But I do think, even though I'm not going there, I do think that, and Gregory Rousseau is vitally important. I'm going to go with Matt Milano as my Take Me Higher player of the game. That leads us to our next pick, our wild card, a surprise player who could affect the outcome of the game.
Guys, why aren't the brakes working? Because I cut the brakes! Wild card, bitches! Yeah! What?
I might actually change mine because Jessica mentioned her. I was going to go with Ryan Bates working the pivot with Mitch Morse out. So since Jessica had that for her Take Me Higher, I'm going to switch mine. But what is your wild card player of the game here?
A guy I mentioned earlier in the show, and a guy that caught a touchdown right before the end of the first half last week, James Cook, I think, is going to be a wild card player for the Bills today. I think that he's been a bit unpredictable in the sense of like yardage and things like that, but I do think he's going to make an impact on this game. I think he's super comfortable right now in the offense. I think that playing in the cold last week and contributing heavily, obviously with the huge catch before the half, has even bolstered his confidence even more. And so I'd like James Cook to be a wild card player in today's game, where I think, and even to me, Devin Singletary is going to have a very big role in this game in the success of the Bills, but I do think James Cook is going to make his mark on this game.
Jeff R coming in saying 100 plus in here, only 24 likes. Smash that like. It really does help us with the algorithm. So if you guys could just take a second, smash that like button, show us a little bit of support. We would really appreciate that. Roy Collins comes in, says Naheem Hines is his surprise player of the game. He's going to return one to the house today. We've got Jared coming in saying Cole Beasley. Jay Davis says Cole Beasley making some crucial third down catches as well. Jeff R, don't you jinx it. He says Cam Lewis. Maybe Cam Lewis needs some redemption. after the Minnesota debacle, after last week's debacle. Maybe Cam Lewis needs some redemption this week, and maybe he blocks a punt on special teams this week. If I were Cam Lewis, I'd be too afraid to get anywhere near the punter after last week, but maybe he blocks one this week. I'm going to switch mine up. And like I said, I was going to go Ryan Bates. And then I thought, like, maybe I'll throw Greg Van Roten a bone. Not going to do that. I'm going to go with Reggie Gilliam. In this weather, I think that you could see, and Jim Wickens comes in with perfect timing here. I think you could see maybe the highest usage of Reggie Gilliam that you've seen this year. He was a big part of this offense like the first 2 weeks of the season, and then it sort of just kind of went away. So I think that the Buffalo Bills get Reggie Gilliam more involved in the offense today, not just blocking out of 21 personnel, but I think they get maybe the ball in his hands on a couple of plays, kind of like they did in the Houston game. And I think Reggie Gilliam makes an impact both as a blocker and both as a receiver in this football game for the Buffalo Bills. So I'm going to throw Reggie Gilliam out there as my wild card player of the game. And that brings us to our next segment. And this one's going to be tough with the Chicago Bears roster. Respect you, player of the game. An opposing player the Bills need to respect in order to win.
I pure, straight hate you. But God damn it, do I respect you.
All right, Dave, who do you got? Who's your respect you player of the game?
There's not a ton of talent right now on this Bears team, and it's like obviously Justin Fields is the best player right now on that team. You have to respect him, but I do think with Khalil Herbert coming back, he was one of the most efficient runners in the NFL before he got that injury. There were a lot of talks about Khalil Herbert, being the more talented running back than David Montgomery, and obviously the injury kind of stopped those talks momentarily. But I do think the Bears getting Khalil Herbert back today is a big win for them as far as like a situation where they don't have a lot of wins right now on that roster. And so I'm saying Khalil Herbert, really good runner. He hasn't been used a ton in the passing game, but he can catch the ball and do damage if you let him get loose in the passing game. So I'm going to say Khalil Herbert, first game back, getting called up from the IR. You need to keep your eye on him.
Yeah. Roy Collins comes in and says Montgomery. So you have that trio of Fields, Montgomery, Herbert. Probably throw Cole Kmet in there. He's a big, tall tight end. He can catch the ball in the red zone. He can block. I'm going to go to the defensive side of the ball. And a guy I mentioned when you were off camera earlier, Jaquan Brisker is just a really talented football player. He's got a really good nose at the line of scrimmage. He can ball hawk in the secondary. Jaquan Brisker, he's young. There's not a talent around him, but he's the type of player that could give a guy like Josh Allen some trouble. So I'm going to go with Jaquan Brisker as my respect you player of the game. I think the Buffalo Bills need to be aware of where he's at on the field at all times, whether he's at the line of scrimmage or he's ball hawking in center field. So Josh Allen's got to keep an eye on Jaquan Brisker today. And that leads us to our second to last segment here, our fire sale, our hottest take for this football game.
Fire sale. Oh, the burning. It burns me. Evacuate all the school children. Oh, me. This isn't a fever. Sing, Greg. Can't even see where the knob is.
All right, Dave, what is your hottest take for this football game?
7 rushing yards last week on 10 carries. Had the sweet 2-point dive over for the 2-point conversion. I think Josh Allen this week over 100 rushing yards and 2
I like that
rushing
one.
TDs for Josh Allen. So statistically, for all you people out there in fantasy and your semifinals and you're worried about the game and the conditions, he's going to make up for it on the ground. He's going to make up for it on the ground, and he's going to have a big day running the ball, and he's going to get in the end zone a couple times running the ball. So Josh Allen today, my hot take, over 100 rushing yards and 2 rushing TDs.
Yeah, Richard Rush comes in and says Beasley with a touchdown. That's a good one. Jay Davis, I like this one. Bobby Hart plays over 15 snaps as an extra offensive lineman in packages, or a Nathan Peterman revenge game. Let's hope it's not the second one. I'm just going to put block a bot in the comment section here real quick. For me, I'm going to go with your take me higher player of the game. I'm going to go with Dawson Knox. I think that last week you saw Dawson Knox have a big game against Miami. You see him step up typically in some of these poor weather games. Last year at home in the wild card game against New England comes to mind, catching that touchdown. So I'm going to go with Dawson Knox 2 touchdowns today. So
Oh,
maybe Josh Allen 2 rushing, Dawson Knox 2 catching. The Bills can put up 28 points today. That should be enough in these conditions for the Buffalo Bills to win if our hot takes come to fruition. And Roy Collins with a spicy one. In this weather, he says Stefon Diggs, 3 receiving touchdowns. I like that one. And then on to our last segment here, our Back to the Future game predictions.
We're sending you back to the future.
Back to the future! Back to the future! Back to the future! Back to the future! Back to the future!
All right, Dave. Paint us a picture. Take us back to the future. Score prediction plus a brief prediction, or paint a picture for us of what this game's going to look like.
Yeah, I think a lot of running for both teams, a lot of short passing game from the Bills. I do like Knox getting involved. I mentioned him as my take me higher, and you have him in the hot take. James Cook getting involved in the short passing game. But I do think that the Bears being a really not like dead last in third down conversion rate as far as defense, the Bills should be able to chew up some long drives in this game. So I expect that this game might be one where you see fewer possessions be from each team. And longer drives from the Bills, and maybe even some long drives from the Bears, which, if the Bills keep them out of the end zone, that's okay. So I'm gonna say it's a little bit of a lower scoring game. I'm gonna say 24, Bills 24, Bears 10 in this one. And I think that the Bills pretty much control it throughout with a much better day tackling today than last week.
Yeah, a bunch of predictions coming in here. I like that one. I'm going to go Bills 28, Bears 14. I think there's just too much at stake for the Buffalo Bills to come out here and lay an egg. They've played in conditions like this before. They played against a team like New England, who is known. Obviously, Mac Jones and Justin Fields are two different, animals at quarterback. But they played in conditions similar to this, even though it's going to be worse today. Last year in that wild card game, they're used to this weather. They're used to these conditions. The rest of the year is going to be played in poor conditions. The Buffalo Bills are wired in a way to perform in these games. I think they show up. I think they find a way to shut down the Bears the way they need to, and I think they find a way to score enough points. So 28-14, Bills over the Bears. I think it's close-ish because of the weather, but it never feels close. Maybe the Bears take like an early lead. We all panic. We all have a temper tantrum on Twitter like I typically do. But then as the game progresses, the Buffalo Bills slowly start to pull away. Roy Collins says most expect it to be a low-scoring game when it's not. We all expected that AFC wildcard game last year to be a low-scoring game, and the Buffalo Bills put up a bunch of points. So now we've got some high-score predictions coming in. Roy already had 35-13. Jeff has 40-14. I would love
like
that.
Jeff.
Bootstrap says 28-17. Peter G coming in saying 37-13. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we all head out here, if you could, really, it does us huge favor if you smash that like button. That would really help us out. We would really appreciate that. If you came in late, there's still about 20 or so minutes till kickoff. You can rewind. You can watch anything that you might have missed at the top of the show here. And listen, it's not too late to get your holiday shopping done. If you're stuck inside because of the snow, you can't do any of that Christmas Eve shopping that you typically do because you put things off like I do. Well, Cover One's got you covered. You can get that football fan in your life, that Cover One pass for $57 a year. You get exclusive members-only content here at Cover One, in-depth analysis, including scheme, play and player breakdown, scouting reports, analytics analysis, access on unlimited devices, access to us here in the Cover One community through our premium Slack channel, and a ton of different behind-the-scenes content. And as you see in the image there in the lower left-hand side, guys like Eric, guys like Anthony, they do like Zoom calls, private YouTube shows with Cover One Pass subscribers, and they teach you the ins and outs of the game, and they break down film with you. Plus, you get a pretty dope T-shirt as well. So if you're struggling to find that perfect holiday gift and it's Christmas Eve and everything is closed, the Cover One Pass is definitely the way to go. Any final thoughts before we head out of here, Dave?
No, just, I hope everyone, starts getting their power back and everything kind of starts, getting better situation up there. Obviously, Flo, we mentioned at the top of the show, thoughts out to all of you. Hope the Bills get that win today and clinch the AFC East for the third year in a row. Would just be nice to kind of go into that Bengals game on a high with some momentum in that regard. And I hope everyone just has a good holiday and make the most of it, make the most of the time with your family and enjoy each other's company. And hopefully that's enjoyed in a Bills win.
Yeah, just survive today and get to that Cincinnati game next week on Monday Night Football. Bill Basner comes in and says more passing yards for Cole Beasley. I think he means receiving yards for Cole Beasley or more rushing yards for Devin Singletary. I'm going to go with Devin Singletary on that one. So how about you? You're going to go Singletary there or Beasley? Who's getting more yards today?
I think Singletary is due for a nice day. I think he's going to have a good game.
It will be interesting to see if Cole Beasley gets utilized than more than one target this week. Now that he's had a little bit of time to get acclimated, and especially in these conditions, working in the middle of the football field could be something of note. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back Monday night at 9 p.m. to break everything down. Don't forget that after the game, you have Greg and Aaron breaking everything down for you. Hopefully, it's a victorious, joy-filled Christmas Eve post-game show, and hopefully it is a nice, fun post-Christmas victory Monday on Monday night, the next time we see you. And thank you so much, guys. Go get prepared. I think I might do some warm apple cider with some liquor today for the game. That might be my it's like 42 degrees here in Phoenix today. I'm really struggling.
23 here in North Carolina. It's pretty cold here.
I was cold. I was in Charlotte last weekend and I was in Columbia, South Carolina last weekend, and I was pretty cold. So we're really struggling as Southerners and Westerners here. But all kidding aside, our thoughts are with you people in Buffalo. We hope you can get the Bills game back, and more importantly, we hope you're staying safe. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, go Bills.
Go Bills.
I almost literally forgot to do our outro. How dare me? One last time, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Are we having fun yet?